Peace, love and life family. It's your girl Morgan Renee Myers tuning in with you all for another reading of No Disrespect by Sister Souljah. It's been a while since I've read from her book, and I felt like reading. I got a long week ahead of me, so excuse me, this might be the only reading I get to do this week. So I'm only wearing this because I know I need to promote and senselessly plug myself more. This is a top that I had started making years ago that I never finished because the back is actually, I had to tie it like with a bow or something back there because I made the back too wide. I'm not even sure who or what I was making this for, but it was really cute fabric and I wanted to do something with it. So that's what I started, and I need to finish it. And I had on a dress. I just pulled it down so I could wear it. Stun on y'all in this top. So, yeah, I have a lot of crochet creations coming up this week. A lot of new things. I want to shout out and thank everybody that hopped on that $20 halter top deal. I was making regular, solid one-color halter tops for $20. And a few people hopped in on that deal, honey. It was nice. It was real nice. So I'm going to be working on all kind of new stuff. Earrings and tops and bottoms. And the guys, y'all keep asking stuff for y'all. So I'll be having mesh tops for y'all and hats and different things. But for now, those of you that know me know I love to read. And I love knowledge and I love learning. I love being black and I love supporting our people. And this book specifically, Sister Souljah, is an autobiography. So she's talking about her life and different experiences that she's had in relationships and things like that. And what better book to read, knowing that I love talking about family, communication, relationships, and sex on my page. So I'm just gonna dive right into chapter 7. All the other readings I've done of this is uploaded on my YouTube channel, which you need to subscribe to because I'm going to be uploading crochet tutorials on there. I'm going to be uploading different interviews that I'm doing with local artists, business owners, and then just some of the Man Monday, Women Wednesday, and Family Friday topics that I post on my page. I'll be having some of that on there. I have the readings on there. I have different food prep and vegetarian and vegan videos on there, dance videos, poetry videos. So I do a lot. So yeah, so I'm just about to get into this chapter 7 of No Disrespect by Sister Souljah. The name of this chapter is called Derek. My beeper went off. This is back in the day before cell phones. The loud noise echoed around my semi-empty apartment. I threw open my closet and put on the first pair of sneakers that fell out. My hair was a wreck. I couldn't worry about that, though. I no longer had a phone in my apartment. I would have to find a payphone on the street. The elevator was too slow coming, so I ran down 11 flights of stairs. When I got outside, I picked up payphone after payphone. Some were missing wires. Some were missing the dial tone. Some were missing the mouthpiece. After running 8 blocks, I finally found one working on 126th Street. I called back. "What took you so long?" he answered. "I couldn't find a phone that works," I replied, huffing and puffing. "Don't give me that bullshit," he paused. "Why are you breathing like that?" "Because I was running." "Who are you with?" "I'm alone." "So you expect me to believe it took you 20 minutes to get back to me because you couldn't find a phone?" "That's what really happened," I said with tears in my eyes and mucus building up in my throat. "You're full of shit, girl. You better stop playing with my head. You think you're too damn smart." Then he hung up. Just like that, I started walking back to my apartment. I was glad it was dark. That way nobody could see me cry. Looking lonely and vulnerable was just not safe. My thoughts were a jumble. I wondered what I would have to do to prove to him that I was true. It seemed he was always jealous, obsessive even. He questioned everything I did, even when I went to work. If I could just gain his trust, I thought. After all, I did pick him up right off the corner. He was on the payphone looking manly and dapper. With one hand, he cradled the phone. With the other hand, he held a leash at the other end of which was a pit bull. I didn't mind. If you lived in New York, you needed some kind of protection. It was better than carrying a gun. He looked healthy. His eyes and skin were clear. His body was strong. I could tell he was drug-free. He was dressed hip-hop style. He wore expensive, studious-looking wire-rimmed glasses. I decided that here was one of those 1 in 100 opportunities. If I played cute and didn't say anything, I probably would never bump into him again. I pulled over in my car and got out. I wiggled my way over and tapped him on the shoulder. "I like you. Can I get your number?" My confidence was booming. So were my hips. I put one hand on my waist and I smiled bright. He looked me over. Then he hung up abruptly. He smiled and said, "You must be joking, right?" I said, "Do I look like I'm joking?" Later on, because we had met this way, he said he couldn't take me seriously. But who else but a slut, he asked, will pick up a man bold like that? He said he figured I did it so well that I must have done it a dozen times before. But he was wrong. I was no slut. I was lonely. It had been a year since Chance and I had cracked up. Since then, I had had no man, no sex, no good male-female conversation. That's important. Sometimes you just want, like, companionship with dudes. I made a status the other day talking about I hate when, like, men get, like, super romancy, like, soon as they meet you, like, first reaching out, first say hello, whatever, and, like, not building rapport or building any type of friendship with you, because companionship is nice. Male-female relationships are nice, and they can be platonic, I feel like. So, like, I don't always like when somebody goes straight to, like, romance. So, I like that she said that, because I can relate. Let me go back. So he figured that I must have done it so well. I must have done it a dozen times before, but he was wrong. I was no slut. I was lonely. It had been a year since Chance and I had cracked up. Since then, I had had no man, no sex, no good male-female conversation. It had begun to sink in that no Prince Charming was coming. If I wanted a man, I had to go out there and stalk him down. The fact that I was now working in the entertainment industry didn't help my man problem. To be sure, I had a tryst with a famous hip-hop star. He was deep, soulful, and even spiritual. But if I learned one thing, it was never mess with an entertainer. They were in love with only their careers. They were also loved, lusted, and literally hunted by hundreds of women. What these women were willing to do to accommodate these entertainers distorted their self-perception. They started believing that they were larger than life. Then they developed obstacle courses and hoops that you would have to hump over and through to prove that you were different than the other 200 women who had called and hunted them this week. I got tired of the visits at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning when he got out of the studio. He said if I couldn't stay awake from him, it meant I didn't really want to see him. Therefore, he concluded I didn't really deserve his attention. After several weeks of trying to rearrange my sleeping habits, playing loud music, leaving windows open so I wouldn't fall asleep, I looked at the bags under my eyes and decided that he and I would do better to just remain friends. It worked out perfectly. The fact that I hadn't given him any pussy meant that he still retained his respect for me. When we became friends, he put away the hoops and abandoned the tricks. We became tight. That's what gave me the nerve to push up on the handsome brother on the corner. I figured he was an everyday guy who might not be conceited. Maybe he'd have some humility about himself. But it was hard. I tried to have a regular relationship, but he refused to trust me. I talked his ears off trying to convince him that I was a strong, decent woman. I shared my views with him. I showed him my community work. I let him drive my van. I lent him money, which he always paid back. I helped him enroll in community college. I even showed him how to start his own little clothing business to keep him off the streets. But the more I did for him, the less he trusted me. So I decided right there on 135th Street in front of Lenox Terrace, my apartment building, that I would hop in my van and go see him. I would tell him how I felt about him. I would beg him to understand and trust me. Then he would make love, and I would pop the question. Maybe he should move in with me. That way we could grow together. He would learn to trust. He would watch me, listen in on my phone calls, do whatever he wanted to feel more secure about us. I knew I was taking a gamble. He had told me never to come by his apartment without calling first. We had argued about that. I said that if I was truly his girl, I should be able to come over anytime I wanted. He said as long as he was living with his mother, even though he paid half of the rent, I should respect their house rules. His mother, he explained, had a boyfriend. She got pissed when too many people invaded her space, especially women. Even if the woman was coming to see her precious son, you still just never know about women, she say. For the past 3 months, I had respected her rules. Tonight was special, though, because I was hurting inside. Never before had any man thought of me as a whore. Never before did I have to prove that my reputation was clean. But I couldn't blame him. After all, we didn't grow up together. He had no way of knowing who, how, and what I was, so off I went. I held my breath as I headed up the stairs to his Brooklyn building. The stench reminded me of the Bronx. I knocked at the door and he answered, I thought I told you not to come by without calling. I'm sorry, I just wanted to clear up our misunderstanding. Is your mother home? I'm sure she'll understand. It's just one of those things. He rolled his eyes up in his head and exhaled. That's when a little 5-foot-tall girl with the face of a troll came to the door holding what looked like a butcher's knife. Instead of fear, I felt disbelief and curiosity. She opened up her mouth and a voice scratched out, So you the uptown bitch who's been trying to buy my man's love? Think your ass is hot because you work at some big record company? Well, fuck you, Salt and Pepper, Moni Love, 357, all the rest of you low-life whores. And if you bring your ass back here again, I'll slit your goddamn throat. Oh, God. These girls be rough and ratchet. I turned to him and looked him in the eye. He shrugged his shoulders as if to say he had nothing to do with it. She and I should fight it out. I remembered my mother's advice. When you see trouble, move in the opposite direction. But I was pissed off. I was mad that he was acting like he never told me that he was not dating anyone else. Mad that he was full of shit. His story about respecting his mother's space was garbage. I was mad that she was mad at me and not him. But what really plucked my nerves was her suggesting that I was some rich bitch from uptown who was so shallow that I had to buy love. It was true that I helped him out sometimes, but it was also true that he always paid me back. What was wrong with that? So I rolled my neck, twisted up my lips, and said, I don't feel sorry for you just because you're ugly. And I don't feel bad about the fact that I'm pretty. I didn't know that he was sleeping with you. Then again, nobody did, because you're so damn ugly he hides you in the house underneath the bed. Well, to make a long story short, she chased me with that butcher knife that night. I ran. He caught her before she could catch me. He restrained her while she shouted every foul name she could think of. Back in my van, I laughed hysterically. It wasn't until I got back to Harlem that it sunk in that I had put my own life on the line just so I could dig into her nerves. I was hurt, but I was not crushed. It had been impossible for anyone to crush me ever since Chance had rolled over my soul with a Mack truck. In fact, I had decided that being in love was senseless for African men and women in America, that racism had made us all too crazy to handle the power of love. Love, after all, was an emotion that was a gift from God. We all had moved so far away from God that for us to try to deal with love was like letting babies play with steak knives. The only result would be blood and pain. But I was human. I had needs, sexual, intellectual, and spiritual needs. So I locked my heart behind a steel door. I surrounded that door by barbed wire and posted security guards everywhere. I settled for the phrase, I had feelings for him. That was good enough. When I found a guy attractive with an interesting or intriguing mind and a knack for serious conversation, I checked to see that he was healthy and drug-free. Then I considered whether I wanted to develop simple feelings for him. That way I didn't have to worry about having myself reduced to nothing. That's what had happened when Chance left. It was a costly kind of pain. I had to completely move out of my apartment. Girl, I've been there. Ooh, you be in something so bad, you just gotta leave the whole space. You don't want nothing to remind you of them. Good Lord. Then I considered whether I wanted to develop simple feelings for him. That way I didn't have to worry about having myself reduced to nothing. That's what had happened when Chance left. It was a costly kind of pain. I had to completely move out of my apartment. I left all my belongings because everything reminded me of him. In my new place, I put nothing but a blackboard and a bed. The bed to sleep on, the blackboard to write down a list of what I had to do each day in terms of work and projects. She was very organized and calculated. That's really good. And boy, did I need that blackboard because my spirit was wounded, comatose even. The only way I could function was mechanically. I get up in the morning, sit on the edge of my bed and tell myself, number 1, stand up. Number 2, take a shower, and so on. That's some depression right there. When I first moved in, I had a telephone and an answering machine. I sat motionless as people called. I pretended not to hear. I did my work, though. Not to do it would have left me hating myself. It would also have given me too much time to think about what Chance had done to me and how I had hated and loved him at the same time. Eventually, even the phone was unbearable. I had it disconnected, but before I did, I called one of my best friends, a South African sister who I loved and respected. I asked her to rent a car for me for the weekend. I would drive around aimlessly every night from midnight until the sun came up. I was so emotionally scarred by Chance that I couldn't face the night alone, sitting or laying in one position. In fact, I rarely slept at all. The problem was, I couldn't give the car back. To be stranded would mean surrendering to the night. That was too frightening to me. So instead, I kept the car. I ran up the bill, I collected parking tickets, and caused the breakup of a friendship with a special and brilliant friend. Dang, girl. Eventually, when I finished driving around in the funk, I returned the car and paid the bill. Meanwhile, my job as a youth director had come to an end. The Commission for Racial Justice and the United Church of Christ closed down and relocated in Cleveland, Ohio. Oh. They offered me a transfer, but I declined. The timing was perfect because the welfare hotels where I did my work with the children also closed down. Well, goodness. The children and their families were redistributed into so-called apartments where racism and poverty could work on them from yet another angle. I got a new job as vice president of a small independent black record company that was distributed by a major label. My work on the benefit concert had brought me to the attention of people in a position to hire. It was a good paying job. Moreover, it taught me the useful skill of how to make stars, how to take an idea from my brain, put it on paper, and through a step-by-step process, bring it to life. It taught me the value of mass marketing, public relations, commercialism, and finance. I learned the power of creating and controlling images. I knew that if I could create characters and artists through radio, television, and film who represented the values that I worked for, I could actually reach more children than it was possible to reach individual by individual. My community service work continued in the form of lecturing in prisons. This was challenging since I consider myself to be politically strong yet emotionally fragile. The first time I visited a prison, the reality slapped me in the face as I was searched, interviewed, escorted down cold corridors, and startled by loud clicking and clanging locks. The doors were massive and impenetrable, making a mockery of all the phony prison escape movies. Nobody was getting out of there without permission. As I walked to the podium to deliver my talk, I heard thunderous applause. I think that's thunderous applause. When I looked up, I saw several hundred black men assembled and seated. When my eyes connected with them, they stood up. As my eyes danced, I felt I found a hidden treasure. Wall-to-wall, beautiful, built, ancient-souled black men. Men more valuable than gold or any material item. Men who were undoubtedly loved, desired, missed, and definitely needed by our community outside. I attempted to look into each of their eyes. It was impossible to accomplish. Even though I knew many of them had maimed, raped, or even murdered, I saw nothing but souls who wanted to be loved, minds that wanted to learn, and men who would have flourished in another land in another time. I wanted to hug them all. This, of course, was forbidden. Instead, I cried. I told them how beautiful they were to me. Then I gave the most powerful, informative, and life-changing talk I was capable of. Afterward, I developed a writing and telephone relationship with an incarcerated brother named Webb. He was beautiful, too. When I got around to asking him what he was in for, he said, murder. He had killed another black brother when he was 14. They were at a party, and what he thought was his manhood was threatened, so he took a life. He said he regretted it. He believed he deserved to be in prison. But did he? Yes, he had killed, and killing was definitely wrong. But who or what had twisted the minds of so many of our young boys? What educational institution had taught him, or failed to teach him, the meaning of manhood? Who had taught him the violence and surrounded him? Who had taught him the violence and surrounded him with frustration? Who had sold our men in weapons of death and destruction? The answer, as far as I was concerned, was simple. White people in power who wanted to preserve their privileged positions in this sick society. The more I talked to Webb, the closer he grew toward me. I yelled at myself for being so stupid. Did I know he would get attached? The fact was, for all my good intentions, I was frightened of entering into a relationship with a man who was in prison. It was impossible to fully comprehend that the fact that when you asked the brother when he was getting out and his release date was so incredibly far away, he simply said, not for a long time. I also had images of him being raped and beaten by other male inmates. The thought of a disease like AIDS was frightening. The thought of a sexual relationship with a possible voluntary or involuntary bisexual or homosexual was not only unthinkable for me, it was undesirable. So I cut off our communication. I figured it was the least painful way. That's kind of why I'm nervous to start pen pal in prison folk. I had seen a flyer somewhere one time, and it was advocating for like pen pals for prison people and prison inmates. And I was interested. I was like, I think that would be a great way to connect with the inside and, like, keep somebody encouraged and their spirits lifted. But I already know the attention I get from Facebook. So I can only imagine trying to visit somebody or sending pictures of myself and somebody getting caught up. You're probably the only person that's showing them, attention and asking about themselves. And I could see how that could, especially if they're in there for a long time, I could see how that would make them feel special and want to stay in contact with you. And it's just like that really fine line in between, like, dang, just trying to be a servant to humanity and show love, spread love, and just knowing, like, this could be misinterpreted. Like, Interesting. So I cut off our communication. I figured it was the least painful way. As I grappled with my own loneliness and inability to find a man who was good and true and deep, I came to see that my problem was not mine alone. Millions of sisters face it as well. Let me take this off because this thing came off. Question. Where were the African men in America? Answer. In prison, under court supervision, gays in love with each other, mental institutions where they were diagnosed not as victims of white supremacy but under some other fancy label, in college being educated and emasculated simultaneously, or successful and therefore involved with or married to another woman already. It occurred to me, based on everything I had experienced, that we African women were willy-nilly all sharing our men. But most of us turned a blind eye to that fact. After all, wasn't it the deceit, trickery, and manipulation men engaged in that put a knife in our lungs? Wasn't it the everyday deceit that took our breath away and assassinated our spirit? The thought that you were a loving person who you thought you knew but obviously didn't. So I decided that I was willing to share a man with another willing sister as long as it was honest. That way, perhaps I could escape and even eliminate the lying and the pain. Perhaps I could organize the relationship like a chore or a job. I can make it functional. When I mentioned these thoughts of openly sharing my man or someone else's man to other women I knew, they thought I was crazy. Never have I seen such neck rolling, lip twisting, finger pointing and attitude. One woman at my job even went to tears. Why, I wondered. Almost every single woman I knew had been sharing a man with or without her knowledge. The majority of them, once they discovered their man was cheating, still never left him. Instead, they argued with him. What they were really asking for, it seemed to me, was for the man to hide what he was doing. They wanted him to keep it out of their way so they wouldn't have to deal with it. Some of these same girlfriends had themselves gone out with married men. Some were married and knew their husband was having affairs. Who was crazy, me or them? About 6 months after starting work at the record company, I found myself in a music store pricing some equipment. The store was crowded. Suddenly, I felt someone tapping me on the shoulder. He asked if I really was who he thought I was. I looked at him. He was very light-skinned, thin, and tall. He had jet black curly hair. He smiled, and his name was Derek. I felt nothing. Why do you ask? I said. Because I heard you speak once. I think you have a real talent. Being a complete sucker for a compliment, I blushed and asked, what kind of talent? I starved for attention. He said, well, your voice is beautiful. When I hear it, it touches my soul. I've listened to you. You've come across so clear, so honest. Are you trying to butter me up? I asked. He smiled and said, no, I'm dead serious. I recall my relationship with Chance. I became serious and stern. I said, look, if you're looking for a record deal, then just ask me for my business card and make an appointment. You don't have to flatter me. That's not my style. See, that's what I mean, he said. It's all honesty with you. Your voice comes from deep down in your gut. When I listen close, I can tell that you feel every word that you say. No, I'm not looking for a record deal, but I think it's interesting that I ran into you. I think your voice would sound rough over some music. Now he had me thinking. He was courteous and unpretentious guy. That was rare for the record business. I wasn't attracted to him, but I was interested in what he had to say. He continued, I think your voice and what you have to say to our people needs to be heard. If we took pieces of your speeches and put them on top of some hard beats, I think we would have a hit. I was fascinated by the idea of mixing political, historical speeches over hip-hop beats. It seemed like a step in the right direction toward the media projects I was interested in creating. Derek said he would produce the music if I would do the lyrics. If we got a deal, I'd pay him for his work and keep the largest bulk of money for myself. He would go his way, I would go mine. He explained that we would both benefit. He would get a break as a producer. I would get to explore a new and powerful arena as a performing artist. I figured I had nothing to lose. He promised to bring me a tape with some of his original music on it. If I liked it, we had a deal. Derek and I got together. I listened to his music. It was good. We agreed to take no more than 6 weeks to complete the project. He would bring his equipment to my apartment. We would work after work, Monday through Thursday, from early evening until almost midnight. As we worked, we learned a lot about each other. As we attempted to develop concept, content, and theme, we would talk over many topics and points of view. With his help, I learned how to properly breathe and relax. Derek was perspective. He noticed how difficult it was for me to open up and let loose. He said that if I was going to be creative, I had to let go of my fear of experimentation. Oof. That's me, because I be so nervous to like get in the studio and stuff. And I have people that want me to do some more stuff with my poetry. I haven't been focusing on my poetry like I should, but some people want me to have some projects prepared so they can have, you know, poems on hand. And I just don't like being in the studio, so this kind of reminds me of like that, like not letting loose and being able to breathe and relax and my fear of experimentation. But you got to do the fearful stuff too. I know. He characterized me as the sort of person who was comfortable doing the things that I was already good at. The real test, he explained, was being able to try something new in which I had no pre-established confidence. After a week or so, I realized how comfortable I was becoming with the routine of Derek's coming over to my place. I still felt no sexual attraction whatsoever. He was much thinner than I like my men. Plus, he was very light-skinned and did not appeal to my sense of beauty. However, he was intelligent, friendly, warm, and sensitive. I admired these qualities. After a while, I came to crave our conversations. Having him in my apartment regularly made me feel safe. Around the third week of our working together, we discovered that he had been overambitious about finishing the tape. We discovered that we had been overambitious about finishing the tape in 6 weeks. We decided we would continue to meet for as long as it took until we were both satisfied with the result. One night, my youngest sister stopped by. She was shopping on 125th Street and found herself in the neighborhood. When she saw all of Derek's equipment in my living room, she laughed and asked me what I thought I was doing. When I told her I was doing an album, she exclaimed, "Not my sister doing an album. Does he realize how corny you are? What are you going to do, talk some African mumbo jumbo on the record?" I shot her one of my serious stares. She stopped teasing me. She stayed for a while, but her presence made me tense. Her comment made me fear that all of the non-thinking black kids would be critical of my efforts because, after all, records were for dancing and good times, not thinking and education. Derek pulled me into the kitchen. He suggested that when we work alone. He said he noticed that the vibe changes when other people enter the room. I agreed. I told my sister that I had to get down to work and needed some privacy. She giggled and said, "If I had a cutie like him in my apartment, I need some privacy so I could down too." I told her it's not what she thought. She smiled and said, "Maybe it's not for you. You always were stuck up and picky, but he's definitely in love with you." She put her coat on. As she exited, she told me I could pass him off to her if I didn't want him. I sneered at her and reminded her that she liked every light-skinned guy with curly hair without even so much as knowing what he was about. Eventually, Derek and I began to talk about relationships. Derek thought it was hard to have genuine relationships because black men felt so inadequate. I told him that a good woman should know how to make her man feel good and special so he could overcome any inadequacies. I told him I didn't have a man that had a tragic relationship in the past, that I drifted along ever since. He looked shocked. "Maybe," he said, "I was looking for the wrong kind of guy." He went on to say that anytime he mentioned my name to any brother he knew, the brother would say, "Oh man, she's beautiful." I laughed at the compliment. Unfortunately, I somehow never met any of those brothers. He asked if I was bitter, if it was possible for me to forgive. I told him my love for the black man was so deep and profound that it was not something to be trifled with. When it was, I was slow to heal. I was still open to relationships, but I had one requirement: honesty. I poured my heart into our conversation. I told him how I had a burning hatred for lying and deceitful men. If they were truly men, they would be able to face and handle the truths in their life, even when those truths hurt. Let me see how long this chapter is, because I don't think I'm going to read all of it. Get a little tired. Yeah, I'm not going to read all of it. If they were truly men, they would be able to face and handle the truths in their life, even when those truths hurt. Men who lied and slithered in and out of holes like snakes should get it back tenfold, I felt. Derek mounted as best he could a defense. He said brothers would not lie if sisters were more intelligent and realistic. Many sisters, he charged, didn't have what it took to satisfy the multifaceted needs of their men. That's why men cheated. If you try to teach a sister to grow intellectually or to expand her horizon, she fought you as though a brother is her enemy. On the other hand, if you left her, she called you a dog. If you stayed with her and dated other women on the side to supplement what she lacked, she tried to kill you. So brothers were in a no-win situation. I told him there was some truth in what he said, but usually guys chose women who were unintelligent. Then they acted surprised when they discovered their women couldn't think. Guys judged women by the size of their breasts, waistline, and hips. Then they appeared disappointed when they found out that's all there was. If men dated women who were both intelligent and attractive to them, then they could have real relationships, I argued. This would be the challenge that kept the relationship interesting. But they were precisely what the brothers didn't want, a challenge. Well, we laughed that night. We even kicked around the idea of doing a record on the subject. As Derek was leaving my apartment, he asked me, "So, you're saying that you're the type of sister who, if your man was seeing someone besides you, you'd rather him tell you than hide it?" I said, "Of course." "And then what? You kick him out, right?" "No. I've decided that if a brother can be honest with me, I can share him with another woman. At least that way I know that I know what I'm getting. I know where he is and how to find him. I'll know her and nobody ends up crying." He left my house that night with excited eyes. Because you can't tell no man you open to polygamy and expect him to. Alright, I got 2 more pages I'm reading. I'm going to stop. Okay. So he left my house that night with excited eyes. The following week, Derek asked me to the movies. There was a black film festival screening, great works of black directors. We went to see Spike Lee's She's Gotta Have It. Although I had seen it, it was when it was first released. I went with him anyway and laughed even more. Excuse me. Later, we talked about the film. I didn't agree with the woman seeing more than one man at a time the way the girl in the film did. She argued that some sisters would say I was crazy. How could I believe in polygamy and not believe that sisters had the same rights to have more than one man at a time? I argued that the only reason sisters should consider sharing our men was the shortage of black men. There was no shortage of black women. We needed to share in order to keep our families intact, to keep our children connected to a male presence, a father figure. We needed social order and balance, not disintegration and chaos. Sharing men was not about having sex with as many people as you could. It was about finding an alternative lifestyle, a lifestyle that was open, honest, and less painful. Derek's face turned red. It seemed that every time I opened my mouth, he ate up and loved my every word. For my part, I was becoming fascinated with the idea of somebody being absolutely smitten by me. As time went on, Derek and I talked more and worked less. Finally, one night, Derek said, "I want you to be my woman. I want to be the man who meets the challenge." I smiled and said playfully, "Oh yeah?" I thought about it. I still was not sexually attracted to him, but I was sexually starved. I also thought, if you can't be with the one you love, then love the one you're with. After all, Derek was a nice guy. I was a lonely woman. If I said no, would he disappear? If I said yes, would we get along? Could I love him? I wasn't certain. He moved closer to me and said, "Come on, I've spent all of my time with you. You know if you're interested or not." I decided he passed my test. He was intelligent, healthy, courteous, and drug-free. I would try to love him as a black man, even though I was not in love with him. So I said, "All right, we can give it a shot, but you have to answer a lot of questions first. Do you sleep with other people?" "Do I sleep with other people?" See, that's what I mean. While we were friends, it seemed everything was honest and open. 2 seconds after I say yes, you start to act like you're stupid. Answer my question. Do you sleep with other people? Derek looked shocked at how rapidly my attitude flipped. He put his hand up to me and said, he put his hand up to slow me down. I said, "Hold up. You can't be screaming on me like that. What's wrong with you?" I put my temper in check and apologized. "I'm sorry. You know I've been through a lot. I can't take nobody holding out on me and gassing my head up with a lot of lies." "All right, check it," he said. "I have a girlfriend, and I was also talking to this other sister. But ever since you and I started working together, I haven't seen that much of her." "Oh, so you have 2 girls already?" I asked with my hands on my hips. "No, the other one is not like my girl. She just, you know." "You know what?" "Well," he said, "yeah, that's how you be describing our relationship to the next girl you meet, right? You'll say, 'I'm not really a girl. I'm just, well, you know.'" "No, it's not like that with you." "Yeah, I've heard that before." "Tell me what it would take for me to have you. Whatever it will take, I'll do it," he said. My blood boiled with excitement. The idea that there was somebody who liked me so much that he was willing to kiss my ass pumped me up. So I smiled and said, "Go tell both of them that you're seeing me too. If we are all 3 going to be dating, we ought to be aware of it. That way I don't have to feel I'm part of a lie." "Peace, Brother Elwood." Derek looked thoughtful. I could see his mind speeding. I guess he was trying to imagine telling the other 2 women about me. After thinking a while, he looked me sincerely in the eyes and said, "There's one problem." Impatiently, I rolled my eyes and said, "If you don't do it, I'm out." "Slow down, I'm going to do it. I can talk to you, right?" "Yeah." "Well, I'll tell both of them about you, but right now, they don't even know about each other. I'll be walking into a minefield, but I'll do it." "So you've been lying to both of them?" I said, as though that's all I expected from a man. "No, not exactly. The second one knows about the first. The first doesn't know anything." Why is that? I asked. Because she can't handle the truth. She won't go for it. Well, she's going to go for it anyway because you're doing it anyway. It's happening. Why would you want 3 women anyway? It's not that I want 3 women. I had the first one first. I love her, but she doesn't understand anything about the history or even the condition of African people. Anytime I tell her anything about our people, she says I'm making pitiful excuses for myself and for black folk. I tell her how much I hate my job and how much racism I have to deal with. She says I should thank God I have a job. She can't relate. She thinks racism was only in the past. Black people should forget it and move on. Once I lost a job and was out of work for a long time, I couldn't find any decent work anywhere. She wouldn't even lend a brother some money. Instead, she turned me into a slave and enjoyed it. I got to eat and stay at her place sometimes. The trade-off was I had to listen to her belittle me all day when she got up to go to work. The clincher was when she took her savings and went to Hawaii with her girlfriends and left me home broke. Honey. So I'm going to stop right there. Actually, I'm going to read this next page. I lied. I started laughing. I didn't believe any woman would be that selfish. Derek didn't laugh, though. I could see the intensity on his face. No, he said, I'm dead serious. I asked her not to go to Hawaii. I showed her my business plan and asked her to have faith in me, invest in my idea. She laughed and said she didn't want no part of my schemes. She said she was going to Hawaii because she worked hard and deserved every minute of her vacation. Where does she work? I asked. She's a beautician. What's her name? Her name is Katrina. We call her Trina. Why don't you leave her alone if she frustrates you so much? I have a problem leaving people, he said, with a sweet innocence that I rarely saw displayed in men. My mother left me when I was a child. I guess ever since then I've had a complex about being so cold as to leave someone. That sentiment touched my guarded heart. After all, hadn't all the men I had ever known found it quite easy to walk away? Why did your mother leave? I asked. She and my father were having problems. She said he was going nowhere with his life. She called him a dreamer. My father said that a few years after they were married, he realized they were just 2 different people with 2 different sets of values. I grew up with my father. Then he smiled and added, my father has 2 wives. Get out of here, I laughed. No, for real. They live in Los Angeles. Me and my father are the same. What happened to your mom? Where is she? After the divorce, she went and married some successful middle-class sucker, some high school principal. My mom said he was a real man. He ended up sexually molesting my sister for 5 years while my mother pretended she didn't know what was going on. Then he fucked up and molested some little girl at the school. It became a public scandal. He couldn't handle the pressure, so he shot himself. That's a real man for you, huh? I lowered my eyes and thought black people were so destroyed. It seems like we have nothing sacred left. So where's your mom now? She's living in this area trying to pick up the pieces with my sister. She and I don't get along too well. I figure what woman is so selfish she gets up and leaves her own son for almost 20 years. She sounds like Trina, I said. How come so many brothers who have complaints about their mothers end up hooking up with some woman who's just like their mom? I told you, he said in a serious voice. I know her faults, but I just can't leave anyone. We sat quietly for a while. I thought I could make him leave Trina, especially since she was such a witch. Then I could have all the attention. Plus, why should she be allowed to continue to humiliate Derek? Then I remembered that there was still the issue of the other woman. So I said, Derek, let me guess. The other girl is the one who licks your wounds and make you feel good when Trina's being an ass? No, Trina makes me feel good. The other one is somebody who I can talk to. She's intelligent and understanding. She knows everything about our people, our history, and all. So what do you need me for? To tell you the truth, if I had it in me to leave a person, I would have left both of them and moved in here with you the day I met you in the store. You're everything I want in one woman. No headaches. Then he asked slyly, you know one of the good things about you? What? I asked, ready for the butter. You're nasty. What? Listen, he said, I know you're good in bed. Your eyes tell it all. It's just that you're proud, real proud. On top of that, you're intelligent. That makes it tough with guys. That makes it tough, and guys would rather not deal with that. But I'm positive about the fire in you. Well, that was it. The compliment I needed. I asked him again if he was going to tell the other 2 about me. He promised he would. Then we did the nasty right there on my living room floor. The next morning, Derek asked for time to straighten out his relationship with the other 2 women in his life. He added that since he spent the night at my place and had not been home at his aunt's where he usually stayed, he would definitely have several fights waiting for him. We talked every day on the phone, not about the other two, but about our usual topics, our music project. At the end of the week, he came back over. He said, well, I did it. It wasn't fun, but I told him. What happened? I asked with excitement in my bones. I couldn't believe he had actually placed his own head in a noose. Well, Shaquilla broke up with me. She said she had been patient. She had asked me to tell Trina about her when we first hooked up, but I refused. So she wanted to know what was so hot about you that now I'm willing to do what I won't do for her. I told her that you're very special to me. She said if she's so damn special, then she can have you. I tried to convince her to stay, but she was furious. She said I was full of shit. I told you every time you tell a sister the truth, she gets mad. Damn, you must feel real bad, I said with evident insincerity. Not really. Her leaving makes things less complicated. I said I couldn't leave a woman. I didn't say a woman can't leave me. What about your girl? I asked, feeling suddenly strange about using the terminology, your girl. She bugged out. She kicked me. She slapped me. She spit on me. She cursed me out. She said what in the hell gave me the nerve to bring some shit like this in her face. So what's up? I asked, hoping she had left him too. She said she's not sharing and she's not leaving me either. She looked at me. So what's she saying? So what she's saying is she's going for it, but she doesn't want to admit that she's going for it? I don't know, but she knows about you. It's all honest. It's on the table the way you want it. I even told her you believe in polygamy. I told her you'd be willing to talk to her about it. Sure, I said. Why not? Derek and I had fun together. We weren't in love lovers. I just didn't feel that way about him. But by now we were tight friends, like partners. I love being with a man again. I love going places and not having to look for a date. I enjoyed talking and having Derek understand with a little explanation. One thing was strange. Even though I was not in love with him, I still felt uncomfortable knowing that when he left me, he was going to see another woman. I would have to remind myself that I had agreed to share. But something inside of me found it discontenting and foreign. A couple of weeks later, I received a phone call at about 3 o'clock in the morning. I had fallen asleep while listening to music, so I picked up the receiver and said, hold on, I have to turn the music down. When I returned to the phone, I heard a female voice say, all night party woman, whose man are you screwing tonight? Fighting off sleep and trying to awaken myself, I mumbled, what? Don't act like you were sleeping, bitch. I heard the music. You're having a party. Only thing, he's not there with you tonight because he here with me, so whose man you got in there tonight? I thought, this must be Trina. 3 o'clock in the morning. She must be flipping. I asked her to hold on again. I went to the bathroom and ran a cold washcloth across my face and came back. Are you still there? I asked. Why are you filling my man's head up? Why are you filling my man's head up with this polygamy bullshit? Can you get your own man? First of all, let's start at the beginning. I'm not having a party. I'm alone. I fell asleep with the music on. I'm not sleeping with anyone besides Derek. Lastly, your man, as you put it, came to me first. He didn't even mention you existed until after I asked him. Then I heard her voice shrill. You're sleeping with her. You were already sleeping with her? Well, that was the sense in acting like you were asking for my... Well, what was the sense in acting like you were asking for my permission when you were already fucking her anyway? I then heard Derek say, we can talk in the morning. I told you it's late. I'm tired. I know you're nothing but a dirty whore. You slept with him already? I've known him for over 3 months, I said. Oh, that's a long time. She was hysterical. You know how long Derek and I have been together? 9 years. Ever since I was 14 years old. She was screaming into the telephone. I heard Derek in the background saying, no, baby, it's only been 7 years. Then he started arguing about which years were legitimate to count. Trina got back on the phone and said, so tell me about this sharing shit you're talking about. I'm a Christian. Do you believe in God? She suddenly and angrily asked. I explained that there was a man shortage in our community. I told her that I believed we were all sharing our men anyway at one point or another, but since we were afraid to admit it to ourselves, we didn't deal with it. I told her that I'd rather deal with it honestly. I added that racism had systematically made it impossible for black men to survive. But since most of us were too naive and too lazy to fight white supremacy while building our communities, we had better get used to the idea of sharing our men. Trina retorted, well, sweetheart, my man can do something else for the community besides fucking you. For the next 2 weeks, Trina called every night. It did not matter whether Derek was at my apartment or hers. They were crazy, loud, screaming calls. I understood that she was angry, but I told myself that she would have been a lot angrier had Derek and I deceived her and she found out about us a year into our relationship. I also knew I could give him up and return him to her because I did not love him. But if I gave him back, she would probably forbid him to continue to work with me. Then I would not only lose a man and a friend, I would lose my music project as well. I knew that she was more entitled to him than I was. After all, she had been with him for all those years. Besides, I realized if we were truly practicing polygamy as practiced by some of my Islamic friends, Trina and Derek would have to be married. Plus, I would have to have received Trina's permission to become the second wife. If she disagreed, it simply could not happen. Also, Derek would have to have been financially stable along with other rules and regulations governing such multiple relationships. But who was I fooling? I wasn't a Muslim. I simply and rather conveniently grafted their philosophy of polygamy onto the social predicament African people in America found themselves in. It was an honest system of man sharing, I rationalized. What really bothered me about Trina was how she talked to me. She called me a whore, a slut, a homewrecker, and as one might expect, was real nasty toward me. I figured for a woman whose man went out on his own and selected another woman, she was doing a lot of nerve blaming. She had a lot of nerve blaming me instead of looking at what he was doing wrong. It was the talking down to me that got my blood boiling. Inwardly, I accepted the challenge to fight over him until one of us won, so I continued to see Derek. We went to the movies, museums, festivals, parties, rallies, but I soon grew tired of Trina's unrelenting harassment, the late night phone calls, the yelling and screaming. So the next time my phone rang, I said, "All right, Trina, congratulations, you won. You get to keep him. Here's the deal. You tell him for me that it's over between us. Tell him please don't come by my house anymore. You keep him over there with you and everything will be fine." Then Trina said, "See, I knew you didn't love him. Derek, wake up." She said, "It's over. I told you she doesn't love you." I hung up. Only 1 week later, Derek returned. I couldn't hide the fact that I was happy to see him. I still didn't want to deal with Trina, so I left Derek standing on the steps outside my apartment building. I quickly phoned Trina and said, "What's up, girl? Your man is here. I thought you agreed to keep him away from me." Trina wept and said, "I've tried everything. He doesn't listen to me anymore. I don't know what to do." My heart softened toward her. I told her I'd send Derek back home. She surprisingly thanked me. So I opened my window and yelled down, "Derek, Trina said to come right home." Then I added sarcastically, "She misses you." He yelled back, "Come on, girl, stop playing with me. Let me in. I need to see you." I went downstairs. I looked through the curtain at Derek's smiling, unpretentious face. I let him in. We had fun together like old times. The phone started ringing again. I told Derek that while I liked him, the fighting was getting on my nerves. I was willing to share if Trina were willing, but apparently she wasn't. Therefore, we would have to end our relationship. He looked at me sadly. He agreed that she would always have problems sharing, but he didn't feel he could just leave her out in the cold. It was a real dilemma for him because he had grown to love me. I sympathized but said he should leave and not return. The whole situation was too much trouble. I had Derek leave, but my phone kept ringing. I refused to pick it up. I knew it was Trina because an hour and a half later it stopped, about the length of time it took Derek to drive from my apartment to hers. For the next week, I dodged Derek's calls. By the second week without him, or any man to replace him for that matter, I started bugging out. While I had my community service project on the weekends, during the week I was blue with boredom. I would spend my evenings reading and writing. Occasionally, I would watch reruns of I Love Lucy to entertain myself. Soon, I started calling all my old girlfriends. I would start with last names that began with the letter A and proceed down to Z. The small talk with them was no comparison, though. Was no compensation, though. My boredom grew. I decided I wanted Derek back, so I waited for him to call again, and I knew he would. When he called, I put on my best sexy voice. He asked me what I was doing. I said, "Oh, I just finished exercising." A complete lie. So now I'm sitting here all covered with sweat, trying to slow my body down. Then I'll take a hot steam shower. Later on, I'm going to start reading the new book I picked up on Malcolm X. I knew how to push his buttons. I knew I'd catch him one way or another. I figured since he had been stuck with Trina for 2 weeks, he hadn't enjoyed a good, intelligent conversation. He asked to see me. As I was telling him to come right over, I heard Trina come in and say, "Why are you whispering into the phone?" "Damn it, Derek, are you calling her again? I told you she doesn't love you. Who has always been there for you? When you need that bitch, she'll be out somewhere protesting on a picket line." His voice went lower and he whispered to me, "I'll be right there." Our reunion was even better than I imagined. I unplugged the phone to avoid Trina's call. I decided I was going to take her man. I was bored and she had refused to cooperate. I asked Derek to move in with me. I knew this had been a sensitive issue with him and Trina. She had refused to let him move into her place until they were married. Derek was pleased by my invitation, but surprised. I told him that, as far as I was concerned, an apartment was just a material thing. I assured him that he could come to my place, escape the turmoil, and relax. He asked about Trina. I told him Trina had her chance, but she blew it playing games. Plus, if he moved in with me, it would put pressure on Trina to accept the arrangement. He would finally realize that I was more than a piece of ass or his plaything on the side. He told me that Trina already realized that. She called me names because she was angry. He smiled and said that if Trina and I had met somewhere else without this situation having ever occurred, we would probably have liked each other a lot. It was issues of the heart, he said, that kept sisters at each other's throats. I sat quiet for a moment. I'm going to stop right here, guys. I appreciate y'all for tuning in. I'm going to upload this on my YouTube page, and I'm going to put part 2 up probably later in the week. All right, I'm going to tune in, meditate for the evening. I have a long week ahead of me watching these 2 special needs kids, so pray for me. All right, good night.